Hidden deep below our feet lie structures that defy explanation. Abandoned, forgotten, and downright impossible. Who built them? Why were they buried? And what are they hiding? Deep beneath the ancient ruins of Hattusa, the once great capital of the Hittite Empire, lies a maze of tunnels that archaeologists still can't explain. These winding underground passageways, carved with eerie precision, stretch far beyond what anyone would expect from a city built over 3,000 years ago. The tunnel's purpose is a mystery. Were they designed for secret rituals, a desperate last line of defense, or something even more sinister? What's more baffling is the advanced craftsmanship. Smooth walls and perfectly angled turns achieved with tools that shouldn't have existed at the time. Some chambers end abruptly as if they were abandoned mid-construction, while others seem to lead nowhere, like they were deliberately designed to confuse intruders, or perhaps even those who lived there. The lack of any clear explanation has sparked wild theories, from hidden treasure vaults to portals for communicating with the gods. Whatever their purpose, one thing is certain. The deeper you go into Hattusa's labyrinth, the more unsettling it becomes. Why would an empire invest so much effort into constructing tunnels that no one was meant to find? Next, we are talking about the KGB bunkers. Beneath the bustling streets of Moscow lies a shadowy network of abandoned Soviet-era bunkers that could rival the plots of any Cold War spy thriller. Built in total secrecy during the height of Soviet paranoia, these underground megastructures were designed to shield government elites and military commanders from nuclear annihilation, or so the official story goes. But as researchers delve deeper, the unsettling rumors surrounding these bunkers refuse to be silenced. Some say they were more than just shelters, suggesting the KGB used them as laboratories for classified experiments, interrogation chambers, or vaults for storing state secrets too dangerous to see the light of day. Their sheer size is staggering, with rumors of tunnels large enough to house trains and entire command centers buried so deep they remain untouched to this day. What's truly chilling, though, is what is left behind when the bunkers were abandoned. Cryptic maps, locked steel doors that have never been opened, and strange equipment no one can identify. Did the Soviets bury secrets so dark that even history itself couldn't unearth them? Or are these bunkers still guarding something the world is not ready to find? In our number 8 spot today, we have the Damanhur temples. Beneath the quiet foothills of northern Italy lies one of the world's most extraordinary secrets, the Damanhur temples. These vast underground halls, often called the eighth wonder of the world, weren't unearthed by archaeologists. They were built in complete secrecy by a group of modern mystics. Using nothing but hand tools, they carved out sprawling cathedrals filled with breathtaking murals, intricate mosaics, and towering columns, all hidden from the outside world for decades. What makes this story even stranger is their claim that the temples were inspired by ancient knowledge, possibly tapping into long-lost wisdom or even energy fields connected to the earth itself. The details are staggering. One chamber is dedicated to the sun, another to water, with each space aligning perfectly to celestial patterns. And yet, these masterworks were never intended to be found. When authorities finally uncovered the temples, the sheer scope and artistry of the project left them completely stunned, and with far more questions than answers. How did a small community manage to pull off such an architectural feat? And more intriguingly, what ancient inspiration were they channeling to create this hidden masterpiece? Beneath the quiet streets of Taust, a small Spanish town that seems frozen in time, lies a chilling secret that has haunted locals for generations. During a routine construction project, workers unearthed crypts containing mass graves, their origins shrouded in mystery. The skeletal remains, hundreds of them, were eerily arranged, some showing signs of rituals or ancient rites. Abandoned for centuries, these crypts are said to be linked to deadly plagues that swept through the region, wiping out entire communities. Whispers of curses have kept locals far from the site, believing the crypts are a resting place for tormented souls who bring misfortune to those who disturb them. Archaeologists who dared to explore the chambers found more than bones. They uncovered bizarre artifacts and markings that don't match match any known historical records. Some even claim the crypts exude an unexplainable chill, as if the air itself carries the weight of centuries-old sorrow. What really happened here, and why does this cursed underground realm seem determined to hold on to its dark secrets? Next, we are talking about the tunnels of Teos. Beneath the dense Amazonian jungles of Ecuador lies the Teos Tunnels, a sprawling underground labyrinth that stretches for hundreds of miles, and possibly even deeper. These tunnels aren't natural formations, they were carved with such precision that some experts argue they couldn't have been made with the tools of ancient humans. The mystery of Teos has lured adventurers for decades, including Neil Armstrong, who joined an expedition to explore its depths in 1976. Stories from the caves are the stuff of legend. Golden artifacts allegedly discovered there, depicting strange symbols and figures, hinting at a civilization far older and far more advanced than history admits. But that's not all. Locals tell tales of bizarre occurrences near the caves, like mysterious lights and sudden, unexplained disappearances. Could these tunnels be the remnants of a pre-human civilization that vanished without a trace? Or are they evidence of something even more unearthly? Despite years of exploration, large portions of the tunnels remain uncharted, leaving us with more questions than answers, and a haunting sense of what might still be hidden in their endless darkness. Next, we are talking about the Naica Crystal Cave. Deep in the sweltering underground of Chihuahua, Mexico, lies the Naica Crystal Cave, a place so otherworldly it feels like stepping into a parallel universe. Discovered by miners in 2000, this cavern is home to the largest natural crystals ever found, some towering over 30 feet and weighing as much as 55 tons. These translucent giants, formed over hundreds of thousands of years, glisten like frozen beams of light, creating an alien-like landscape that seems almost too surreal to be real. But this breathtaking beauty comes at a price. The cave's extreme conditions, temperatures reaching 136 degrees Fahrenheit and nearly 100% humidity, make it impossible for humans to survive inside for more than a few minutes without specialized suits. Deemed too dangerous to explore further, the cave was abandoned, leaving much of its secrets untouched. Some believe these crystals hold untapped energy or clues to the Earth's geological past. Others say the cavern's unearthly nature hints at something even more mysterious. For now, the Naica Crystal Cave remains sealed off. Next, we are talking about the salt mines of Yekaterinburg. Beneath the industrial city of Yekaterinburg, Russia, lies an abandoned salt mine unlike anything you've ever seen. The walls of this underground labyrinth are streaked with vibrant, multicolored swirls, creating patterns so hypnotic they look like an artist's fever dream. These surreal formations are natural, caused by layers of mineral deposits over millions of years, but the effect is so otherworldly it's hard to believe humans didn't have a hand in it. While the mines are hauntingly beautiful, they are also full of mystery. Locals whisper that during the Soviet era, these caverns may have been repurposed for secret experiments or as hidden bunkers for classified operations. Access to much of the mine is restricted, fueling rumors of forgotten chambers hiding evidence of Soviet ingenuity, or perhaps some darker truths. The unearthly beauty of these salt mines stands in stark contrast to the eerie silence of the abandoned tunnels, leaving visitors with one question: what else might be buried in the shadows of this psychedelic underground world? Next, we are talking about the temples of Ellora. Hidden beneath the surface of Ellora in India lies a wonder that defies logic, an entire complex of subterranean temples carved directly into solid rock. The sheer scale of these structures is overwhelming. Massive halls, intricate sculptures, and towering pillars, all painstakingly chiseled with a precision that modern engineers can't replicate. What's even more astounding is that these temples, built over 1,500 years ago, were created without the aid of advanced tools. To carve just one of these temples, thousands of tons of rock had to be removed, but historians have no clear answers as to how this was achieved or why such monumental effort was dedicated to building underground. Among the 34 temples in the complex, the Kailasa Temple stands out, a single monolithic structure carved from the top down with details so fine they seem impossible for the tools of the time. But the biggest mystery of all? Why were these incredible creations eventually abandoned? Was it a shift in religion, a forgotten disaster, or something even more mysterious? The temples of Ellora remain one of the greatest architectural puzzles in human history, leaving behind questions that may never be answered. In our number 2 spot today, we are talking about the Kaymakli underground city. Beneath the dusty hills of Turkey lies the Kaymakli underground city, a sprawling labyrinth of tunnels and chambers carved directly into the earth. While it's often overshadowed by its more famous neighbor Derinkuyu, Kaymakli is just as massive and no less mysterious. Built to shelter thousands of people during times of invasion, the city is a marvel of ancient engineering, complete with ventilation shafts, storage rooms, and areas designed to house livestock. But its story takes a darker turn. When archaeologists explored its depths, they discovered locked rooms containing human remains, suggesting some of its inhabitants were trapped and left to die. The eerie layout of the city adds to the unsettling vibe: hidden passages, stone doors that could seal off entire sections, and dead ends designed to confuse anyone who dared enter uninvited. How did such a sophisticated structure, capable of sustaining life underground for months, become forgotten for centuries? And what really happened to the people who never made it out? And finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have the Burlington Bunker. Hidden beneath the rolling countryside of Wiltshire, England, lies the Burlington Bunker, a Cold War-era underground city built in total secrecy. Designed to house the British government in the event of nuclear war, this sprawling complex is nothing short of a subterranean marvel. It's said to include 60 miles of tunnels, complete with living quarters, offices, and a fully stocked medical center, and even its own BBC studio to broadcast emergency updates. Yet, despite its purpose as a haven for continuity of government, Burlington was abandoned and sealed off for decades, leaving behind a maze of eerie, dust-covered corridors and silent rooms frozen in time. The true purpose of the bunker remains a topic of debate. Why build a facility of such massive scale only to abandon it? Some theorize it may have been more than just a fallout shelter, possibly housing classified operations or secret experiments hidden from the public eye, with access restricted and much of its history shrouded in mystery. Burlington Bunker stands as a chilling reminder of a time when the threat of annihilation loomed large, and the secrets that might still lie buried within its depths.
Deep in the jungles of northern Guatemala is El Mirador, an ancient city-state that was once home to over 1 million people. El Mirador is huge. It's one of the largest and oldest Maya cities. What's really cool about it though are the roads. There's a 150-mile network of ancient highways. They were rediscovered in 1967 by British explorer Ian Graham, who published a map of the site. Then in 2006, researchers used lasers to scan the Mirador Basin from the sky, and they were able to create 3D images that showed this system of roads, pyramids, and canals. The highways themselves were massive, with raised causeways 20 feet high. What's wild is that these roads were built between 600 BCE and 100 CE. They would have helped move supplies and people across this vast city. These ancient roads are part of what make El Mirador one of the most sophisticated ancient civilizations in the Americas. What you're looking at here is the mysterious Monk's Mound in Illinois, part of the Cahokia Mounds. The mounds were part of an ancient city home to the Mississippian people between 1050 and 1350 CE. Cahokia once had a population of 15,000 to 20,000 people, and it was a marvel of engineering and planning. The site now contains about 80 mounds, but the original city had around 120. The mounds were used for everything from ceremonial purposes to housing elite rulers. The most famous mound, Monk's Mound, is the largest in North America, standing 10 stories tall and covering 14 acres. Pretty bizarre. You have an ancient pyramid right in the middle of Illinois. Cahokia was the largest pre-Columbian city north of Mexico and one of the most complex archaeological sites in the US. The city's original name has unfortunately been lost to time, but the mounds were named after the Cahokia tribe, a group that lived nearby when French explorers arrived in the 17th century. Uxmal on the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico is one of the most important cities of the Maya civilization. It's a site full of massive structures, but one of the standouts here is the Pyramid of the Magician, also called the House of the Dwarf. Legend has it that a dwarf, who hatched from an egg, built the pyramid in a single night. In reality, the pyramid was built in the 6th century, but it's still an impressive feat. Standing 115 feet tall, the pyramid is the largest building in Uxmal with 5 levels and multiple temples inside. The Maya often built new structures on top of older ones, and Temple 4, one of the top temples in the pyramid, has 12 stone masks around its doorway, thought to represent Chak, the rain god. The governor's palace, another giant structure, covers over 12,000 square feet. You'll also find ancient roads that connect Uxmal to other Maya cities like Tikal and even Caracol in Belize. Today, Uxmal is an UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's easy to see why. Chichen Itza is one of the most famous and impressive ancient Maya cities, located in the heart of Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula once again. At one time, it was a busy place full of religious ceremonies, politics, and trade. At its peak, it was home to around 35,000 people. It was built in a perfect spot near a bunch of natural sinkholes that provided plenty of water. In fact, the name Chichen Itza comes from the Mayan words chi, mouth, chen, wells, and Itza, which was the name of the Mayan tribe who settled there at the time. Chichen Itza was founded in the 6th century, but it really reached its height during the 10th century when it was influenced by the Toltec people from central Mexico. One of the most famous buildings here is El Castillo, the pyramid at the center of the site. At 79 feet tall, it has 365 steps, one for each day of the year, and during the spring and autumn equinoxes, the shadows create this illusion of a serpent slithering down the stairs. Machu Picchu is one of the most iconic ancient structures in the entire world, sitting high in the Peruvian Andes and nearly 8,000 feet above sea level. It's a 15th century Inca citadel, often called the Lost City of the Incas, and for good reason. It was mostly hidden from the outside world until 1911, when American historian Hiram Bingham rediscovered it. The site is mind-blowing to say the least. It was built in the classical Inca style with perfectly fitted dry stone walls, and its 3 main structures, the Temple of the Sun, the Temple of the 3 Windows, and the Intihuatana, are still standing. The Inca never wrote anything down though, so no one really knows exactly what Machu Picchu was for. The leading theory is that it was a private retreat for the Inca emperor, but built around 1450. Some archaeologists think it was more of a royal estate, but we still don't really know. Machu Picchu was abandoned by the Inca around 100 years later, just before the Spanish conquest. Vilcabamba in Peru, often called the Lost City of the Incas as well, was the final stronghold of the Inca Empire. It was the capital of the Neo-Inca state from 1539 until its fall in 1572. It was the last base of Incan resistance against Spanish invaders. The city's remote jungle location made it nearly impossible for the Spanish to reach, allowing the Incas to hold out for decades here. Its ruins were hidden for centuries. In 1911, explorer Hiram Bingham mistakenly identified Machu Picchu as Vilcabamba, but years later explorers, including Jean Savoy in the 60s, found that the real site was actually this one here. For decades, the Spanish struggled to locate the city, with one chronicler writing, "Great resources are needed to undertake a penetration of that land." But the city was finally captured in 1572, leading to the execution of the last Inca monarch. Yaxchilan is an ancient Mayan city found deep in the jungles of southern Mexico, along the Usumacinta River. It was one of the most powerful cities in the Maya world between the 4th and 9th centuries. The city is probably most famous for its huge acropolis, a collection of buildings that includes temples, palaces, and ceremonial areas. The site is also packed with all these incredible reliefs that tell us quite a bit about the Maya life, their gods, and the rituals that they would have performed. Yaxchilan's remote location helped it stay hidden for centuries, and it wasn't until the 19th century that explorers started to rediscover it. One of the coolest things about this place is how the jungle has slowly started reclaiming the city, giving it this kind of lost feel to it. And next on the list we have geoglyphs. In the Amazon rainforest, large-scale geoglyphs, which are these ancient formations created by removing topsoil, have been discovered over the years. They're basically these colossal drawings carved into the earth, some stretching over 600 feet. They're in all kinds of shapes, circles, squares, some depict animals even. And researchers believe these geoglyphs were constructed between 2,000 and 6,500 years ago by indigenous tribes. As to their purpose though, that's still mostly a mystery. There are theories, Maybe they are used for ceremonial or religious practices, or maybe they had a more practical function like water management or defense, but the sheer scale of these things and the effort it would have required to create them definitely raises a lot of questions about what these tribes were capable of. Calakmul is an ancient Maya city deep in the jungles of southern Mexico, in the Yucatan Peninsula once again, and it was one of the largest and most powerful Maya cities, especially during the Classic period, around 600 to 700 CE. Found near the Guatemalan border, Calakmul was a major player in the Maya world, often locked in competition with other city-states like Tikal, which we covered in part 1, so check that out if you haven't already. The city is massive, covering more than 70 square kilometers, but it's most famous for its massive pyramids. The largest pyramid, known as Structure 1, stands over 145 feet tall and is one of the tallest Maya pyramids ever discovered. It's so big that it even dwarfs other pyramids in the region. Teotihuacan is one of the most impressive and mysterious ancient cities in Mesoamerica, sitting just 25 miles northeast of modern Mexico City. At its peak, it was the largest city in the Americas, with a population that could have reached up to 125,000 people, making it one of the world's biggest cities during its time. The city is famous for its massive pyramids, the Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon. These monuments are massive, the Pyramid of the Sun standing at 200 feet high, making it one of the largest pyramids in the world. But Teotihuacan has more than just those giant stone structures. It also had a sophisticated layout with multi-family apartment complexes, wide avenues, and intricate murals that now give us a glimpse into the daily life of the people who once lived there, and the place had a lot of influence on places surrounding it too. The city's obsidian tools were highly prized across Mesoamerica, and evidence of its presence has been found as far away as the Maya region. Its cultural impact was huge. The later Aztecs even saw Teotihuacan as their spiritual ancestors and adopted some aspects of their culture into their own. Teotihuacan was established around 100 BCE, but mysteriously collapsed in the 6th century. This is super exciting because it's a very recent find. In southeastern Mexico, a team of archaeologists has uncovered a hidden ancient Mayan city, more than 6,000 structures, including pyramids, all buried under thick vegetation. The city has been dubbed Valeriana, and it was revealed thanks to LiDAR, which stands for Light Detection and Ranging. It's a laser-based mapping tool that uses airborne sensors to scan the landscape. The data, collected back in 2013 as part of a forest monitoring project, wasn't actually being used for archaeology, but when researchers took a closer look, they saw this sprawling Mayan city. And according to Luke Auld Thomas, the study's lead author, our analysis revealed not only a picture of a densely settled region, but also a lot of variability. End quote. This wasn't just a small settlement, but a large city, potentially home to 30 to 50,000 people between 750 and 850 CE. The city was hidden in plain sight, with farmers unknowingly working among the ancient ruins. And it's amazing because 6,764 structures have been found, and as Auld Thomas put it, there is much more to be discovered. When I first saw an image of this place, I thought that it may have been an AI-generated image, but it isn't. Despite how fantastical this place looks, it's actually real. This is the Sigiriya rock fortress in Sri Lanka. High in the jungles of Sri Lanka, there's a towering rock fortress that doesn't look like it should exist. Sigiriya, also known as Lion's Rock, was built in the 5th century CE by King Kashyapa, who constructed this place on top of a giant boulder that rises 200 meters or about 650 feet above the ground. To enter the place, visitors had to climb this massive staircase that passed through the mouth of this colossal lion sculpture. After Kashyapa completed the palace, his brother launched an attack. Kashyapa's army abandoned him, and the king's wives jumped to their deaths from the top of the rock, and the fortress eventually was captured and fell into ruin. For centuries it was forgotten, first as a royal palace, then as a Buddhist monastery. When European archaeologists rediscovered it though, they were stunned. The lion entrance, real. The palace's mirror wall, designed to reflect the king's own image as he walked through, real. Today, UNESCO calls Sigiriya the 8th wonder of the world. What you're looking at here is known simply as the lost city of Colombia. In the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta Mountains is a city that was lost to time for centuries. About 1300 years ago, the Tairona people built an incredible city on top of the hills. The story goes that they'd been instructed by their god, who told them to live as close as they could to the stars. For 700 to 800 years, people lived here until the Spanish conquistadors arrived, and the Tairona never encountered the Europeans themselves, but the diseases that they brought spread rapidly and wiped out the entire civilization. With no one left to care for it, the city fell into ruin and was mostly forgotten. It wasn't until the 70s that a group of bandits passing through the jungle came across this hidden city, and they couldn't believe their eyes. An ancient, overgrown city full of precious artifacts. Pretty amazing. The bandits pocketed what they could and sold their loot on the black market, and that's when archaeologists caught wind of this amazing discovery, and soon what was known only as the Lost City was uncovered after nearly 500 years. For centuries, there's been a legend of this hidden city deep in the jungles of Honduras. Hernan Cortez, the infamous Spanish conquistador, heard rumors of what was called the White City, or the City of the Monkey God, a place said to be full of unimaginable wealth. Cortez searched and searched, but he never found it, and neither did anyone else for hundreds of years. But the legend never went away. Even Charles Lindbergh, the famous American aviator, claimed to have seen this city while flying over the country. Others swore that they'd found it, but for one reason or another, they couldn't or wouldn't reveal its location. Then in the early 2000s, archaeologists came across something almost by accident. A team following the path described by one of the more eccentric individuals who claimed to have discovered it ended up finding this massive ancient city exactly where he said it would be. Deep in the rainforest, they uncovered a pyramid and a series of stone sculptures, remnants of some advanced civilization that had vanished more than 1,000 years before. Now, it's still not 100% certain if this truly is the city of the monkey god Cortez spoke of, but it is still proof of a lost civilization. The lost city, now known as La Ciudad Blanca, is just a reminder that legends are sometimes closer to reality than we may realize. What you're looking at here is the ancient city of Tikal, deep in the Guatemalan rainforest. This ancient Mayan city, thought to have been called Yaxmutal, was once the capital of a powerful Maya kingdom, occupied from around 200 to 900 CE. There were huge pyramids, royal palaces, massive stone monuments, some still standing today. As you can see, like a lot of Mayan cities, it's not super clear why it was abandoned. Could have been a combination of things: lack of resources, environmental changes. It wasn't until 1848, though, that an organized expedition rediscovered the place, but it's still one of the largest and best preserved archaeological sites in the Americas. These are the rice terraces of the Philippines. They're a pretty breathtaking feat of ancient engineering. These terraces, carved into the steep slopes of the Cordillera Mountains over 2,000 years ago, are often called the eighth wonder of the world, and for good reason. The terraces were designed to grow rice, but the real magic is in how they were built, using the natural contours of the land and without modern technology. Generations of indigenous Ifugao people with basic tools created all of this. It's said the Ifugao people didn't just build the terraces, they became the land. They engineered intricate irrigation systems, creating channels and bamboo pipes that bring water from nearby rivers all the way up to the fields so that the crops are healthy even in the dry season. What's even crazier is that these terraces are still in use today. People are still farming rice on the very same terraces that were built over 2,000 years ago. San Agustin Archaeological Park in Colombia is home to the largest collection of megalithic sculptures in Latin America and is considered the world's largest necropolis. There are all kinds of statues here, which were likely carved between 500 and 400 CE. You'll find gigantic anthropomorphic figures of jaguars, crocodiles, and birds. Some statues stand as high as 23 feet, or about 7 meters. Others are smaller, but still very impressive. We still don't know exactly who created them, or why. What is clear is that a lot of the statues appear to guard burial mounds, which means maybe the ancient culture believed in protecting the deceased in the afterlife. The site was first documented by a Spanish monk in the 18th century, but it wasn't until much later that serious excavations happened. And today, San Agustin is an UNESCO World Heritage Site with over 500 statues scattered across more than 50 square kilometers. Great Zimbabwe, found in modern-day Zimbabwe, is one of Africa's most incredible ancient sites and the largest collection of ruins south of the Sahara. Legend has it that this is where the biblical Queen of Sheba once ruled, but in reality the city existed between the 11th and 15th centuries. The exact identity of the people who built it was debated for years, with a lot of the colonial government in Rhodesia outright refusing to believe that the advanced city was built by native Africans, but today it's generally accepted that the Shona people built the city. At one point, Great Zimbabwe was home to around 18,000 people, and its massive stone walls, some reaching 5 meters or about 16.5 feet in height, were built without any mortar. Nan Madol in Micronesia is an ancient city built on over 100 tiny islets, earning its nickname Venice of the Pacific. There's a lot of mystery behind how it was built. Local legends say two wizard brothers, Olishipa and Oloshipa, arrived from across the sea in a giant canoe, and they wanted to create a place to honor the gods of the sea and harvest. After two failed attempts to move giant stones to the site, they used the magic of a dragon to levitate the blocks. Nan Madol's construction is still being studied today. The people who built it didn't have pulleys, cranes, no metal tools, so it's believed they moved nearly 2,000 tons of stone every year for over 400 years. How they manage this, especially in such a remote area, is still one of history's greatest mysteries. Angkor Wat in Cambodia is one of the most jaw-dropping ancient structures in the world. It's also the largest religious monument in the world. It was originally built in the early 12th century, designed as a Hindu temple dedicated to the god Vishnu. By the 14th century, it had become a Buddhist temple, which it remains to this day. The entire temple complex is surrounded by a massive moat. The main temple rises up with 5 towering spires representing the 5 peaks of Mount Meru, the center of the Hindu universe. The walls are etched with incredible images of mythical creatures and battle scenes, and the craftsmanship is so intricate that it really feels like a completely different world. And that's just from images and video I've seen. I can only imagine what it'd be like actually stepping into this place. And Angkor Wat is just part of what was once a much larger city, Angkor, which once housed over 1 million people. And that's massive when you consider it was built in a time long before cranes and other modern tools. Over the centuries, the jungle slowly is creeping back in, and it's overtaking a lot of the city, leaving behind this incredible hidden world that wasn't fully rediscovered until the 19th century. Definitely a place I gotta add to my list of places I want to go.
Out in the western Cape York region of Australia, there's this odd stretch of land, more than 60 kilometers long, where the earth just bulges up in huge mounds. For years, researchers have been trying to figure out what the hell they are, even though the local Chungunji people have been telling everyone that these mounds were burial sites. Nobody took them seriously. Instead, scientists came up with all sorts of bizarre ideas. Like, they even suggested that birds were somehow responsible for creating the 250 mounds. Yeah, birds. Well, in 2018, they decided to use radar to scan 11 of the mounds. And big shocker here, the natives have been right all along. Not only did the mounds have human remains inside, but they also uncovered old artifacts like spears, flowers, and coral. Some of the mounds could be as old as 6,000 years. Basically, around the same time the Egyptians were building the pyramids. In 2015, archaeologists came across around 100 ritual sites in the Eilat Mountains in Israel. Part of the Negev desert. The sites were full of stone circles and some phallic-shaped structures. But the creepiest thing about these finds, unless you're particularly adverse to phallic-shaped artifacts, was the fact that cult activity had been carried out there. There were 44 different cult locations. We don't know exactly what went down at these sites, but it's pretty clear that death and fertility were big themes. The sites were built around 8,000 years ago, and a lot of them had large stone circles that pointed towards smaller phallic-looking stones. Plus, there were these bizarre burial practices like burying stone objects upside down. They had also chosen spots for these sites that had great views. Maybe for a dramatic effect, but who knows. This isn't even all of it though. Archaeologists have found even more sites beyond the Aylat Mountains, including a survey that discovered 349 additional sites scattered across the region. Ghost towns are already creepy, right? No one around, large empty spaces that were built for lots of people, now left to rot and crumble away to the unforgiving, ever-present passage of time. Well, there's one ghost town in one of the most famous deserts in the world, the Sahara. It's called Jado, an ancient abandoned settlement in Niger, right on the border with Libya and Algeria. Jado used to be a busy trade hub, home to the Tuareg people, nomadic Berbers who lived in the desert. The town was strategically located on trade routes that connected to North and West Africa. The buildings here are made of mud brick, some of which are several stories high. But as trade routes shifted and the environment got drier, people started abandoning the town, and eventually it was left empty. Today, all that's left are these eerie, crumbling buildings battered by the desert winds. You knew we weren't getting through this list without at least one mention of Egypt. In the Nubia Desert, there's this strange arrangement of stones called the Nabta stones, dating back around 6,000 to 7,000 years. These flat granite slabs from circles and semicircles, and they're kind of a mystery. Some researchers believe that there were an ancient calendar of sorts, used to track the stars and other astronomical events. The alignment of these stones is so precise that it shows the people who built them had a pretty sophisticated understanding of the skies. The stones are also tied to a cattle cult that existed in the region. You can actually find carvings of cattle on some of the stones, which likely means these animals were really important in these people's spiritual beliefs. We still don't know exactly what the stones were used for or who exactly built them, but it's clear that these ancient people had some pretty advanced knowledge about astronomy and agriculture, way ahead of their time. Out in the middle of the Sahara Desert in Niger, there's this incredible site called Gobero, discovered in 2000 by a team led by archaeologist Paul Sereno. Gobero is basically a giant ancient graveyard dating back around 10,000 years ago. It's made up of 8 different burial sites, and the amount of information it's given archaeologists about early human societies is a lot. It's given them a lot. 10,000 years ago, this area wasn't the dry, barren wasteland it is today. It was a green paradise, full of lakes and wildlife. The people who lived here were a mix of hunter-gatherers and early farmers, and the graves show they lived with domesticated animals, like cattle. The bones found at Gobero, both human and animal, tell a story of a community that lived in harmony with their environment before things started to suck. As the climate changed and the region became drier, the once healthy, plant-filled area slowly turned into the desert we know today. Now, if you've never heard of the desert kites, I don't feel bad. They're a bit of a weird discovery. These are giant V-shaped stone enclosures found all over the deserts of the Middle East and North Africa. Some of these strange formations stretch over to 1,000 meters long. They're massive. They got their name because, well, they look like giant kites from the air. But what are they actually used for? Some researchers believe they were ancient hunting traps. You'd have these enclosures built in the shape of a V, and wild animals like gazelles would be herded toward them by hunters, making it much easier to trap them. These things could date back as far as 10,000 years ago too. The sheer scale and complexity of these things is crazy. From the sky, they look like something made by aliens. They remind me of crop circles. I had to slip aliens in there at least once. I'm contractually obliged to the higher-ups at the all-domain anomaly Anomaly Resolution Office. Anyway, the fact these things have been around for tens of thousands of years is just amazing. No one really knows how these ancient people managed to coordinate such elaborate hunting strategy, especially in such a harsh, dry environment. Okay, now let's talk about Great Zimbabwe, which is definitely one of the coolest ancient sites in Africa. These ruins are massive. They're the remains of a city that was around between the 11th and 15th centuries. This place was a whole civilization, and the stone structures here are still standing today. The most famous part of the ruins is the Great Enclosure, a huge circular stone wall that's nearly 250 meters, or just over 820 feet in diameter. What's so wild about it is that there are no mortar joints holding the stones together, just perfectly cut granite blocks stacked up. The level of precision in the stonework is crazy, and we still don't really know how they managed to pull it off without modern tools. Now, we know that the Kingdom of Zimbabwe was rich and powerful, thanks to trade in gold and ivory, but there's still a lot of mystery around the people who built these structures. The lack of written records means we're mostly guessing. But the fact that a pretty sizable and advanced civilization had success in such a harsh region, dry with limited resources, makes this place seem almost impossible to have existed. Petra, oh how I want to see this place in person. If you don't know the place by name, you'll know it from images. Petra is an incredible ancient rocked city carved right into the cliffs of the Jordanian desert. If you've ever seen Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, you've seen Petra. This place is so much more than just a cool looking set piece though. It was built by the Nabataean people around the 4th century BCE. And for centuries, it was a major trade hub. The city's carved into red sandstone mountains, and its most famous structure is the Al-Khazni, or the Treasury, which has a breathtaking, intricately carved facade. The entire city wasn't just built on the surface though. They carved out entire tombs, temples, and houses into the rock itself. They also had an insane water system that funneled rainwater into cisterns and channels, essentially for a city like this to survive in an environment that's super dry and harsh. Petra was abandoned around the 17th century though, and it took until the early 19th century before it was rediscovered by the outside world. By that point, nature had almost completely reclaimed the place. But even when you look at it today, it's still hard to wrap your head around how they managed to build such a monumental city in the middle of a desert, with technology that was pretty primitive by today's standards. You probably know about Egypt's pyramids, right? But have you heard of the pyramids of Meroe? Found in the Nubian desert of Sudan, these pyramids belong to the Kingdom of Kush, which ruled from around 800 BCE to 350 CE. Now, while Egypt was building its giant pyramids, the people of Meroe were building their own. These ones are smaller, but they're just as mysterious. The pyramids of Meroe are steep and sharp, with over 200 pyramids still standing. And the crazy thing is, a lot of them haven't been fully explored yet. What's even stranger is that there are almost no written records of the Kushite people who built them. So we don't know exactly why they built these massive tombs, but it's clear they were a sign of wealth and power. The kings and queens of Kush were buried in these pyramids, and many of them were adorned with riches. But after the 4th century CE, the Kingdom of Kush collapsed, and the pyramids were mostly abandoned. Let's head to the American Southwest now, to Chaco Canyon, a place in the desert that's been baffling archaeologists for years. Chaco Canyon was the heart of the ancient ancestral pueblos, a civilization that lived in what is now New Mexico between 900 and 1150 CE. This place was like the capital city for an entire culture, and it's one of the most complex archaeological sites in North America. These folks were advanced. They built these huge, multi-story stone buildings, massive complexes like Pueblo Bonito, which has over 650 rooms. It was a center for trade, astronomy, and religion. No one knows exactly how they got their materials to build these places, considering the area around Chaco Canyon is pretty barren. The stone used for construction came from places miles away, and these ancient people somehow hauled it all the way to the canyon. And the thing that really makes it feel like a mystery is the way they aligned the buildings. Some of the structures in Chaco Canyon are aligned with stuff up into the sky, like solstices and lunar cycles, meaning, just like the Mayans, they seem to have advanced knowledge of astronomy. Also like the Mayans though, their civilization dissipated. Around the 12th century, the canyon was abandoned.
Pumapunku in the Andes Mountains of Bolivia is part of a larger temple complex linked to the Tiwanaku culture. It's thought to have been built between 536 in 600 CE, but some researchers think it could be even older than that. The site has these impressive stone blocks, with the largest weighing around 131 tons, way heavier than most modern construction equipment, and they were sourced about 50 miles away. Moving these enormous stones to such a high altitude site would have been no small feat. The area is above the tree line, which means they couldn't use wooden rollers. So how did the builders actually manage to transport these massive blocks? And it's not just how heavy they are, it's the intricate carvings on them. There are these precise etchings cut into the stone, perfectly straight lines. Did they have some kind of advanced tools we just don't know about? Without knowing it, I'd think these were carved with modern day electric tools, but of course that wouldn't have been the case in the year 600. In Saqqara, near the pyramid of Djoser in Egypt, archaeologists discovered 24 coffin-shaped black boxes. These boxes are made of solid Aswan granite, a material so tough that it's hard to scratch even with modern tools. Each box is massive, weighing over 100 tons, and they're designed to be airtight. The lids of these boxes are also made from granite and weigh about 30 tons each. The precision with which these boxes were cut and assembled is just astonishing. Some think that the sheer level of skill shown in these boxes is just so high that it seems almost impossible for ancient people to have achieved it. Of course they did though, which just goes to show how truly impressive the ancient Egyptians were, unless of course you're in the alien camp and think that aliens just helped them out or that the Egyptians copied some advanced design of theirs. As for now though, nobody knows exactly why there are 24 boxes or what their original purpose was. Nan Madol is an incredible ancient city located on the coast of Pohnpei in Micronesia. The site has about 100 artificial islets spread over 150 acres of lagoon. It's estimated that it could have housed more than 1,000 people. Built between 1100 and 1628 CE, Nan Madol was likely a ceremonial and political center. What makes Nan Madol fascinating is how it was built. The structures are made from massive basalt columns, and there was no mortar. The builders just constructed and placed the stones perfectly. It's incredibly impressive, but how did they do it? Well, legend has it that giant birds lifted and placed these heavy stones. The layout of Nan Madol is complex as well, with interconnected islets and waterways. This was a highly organized society. The people who lived here had very advanced skills. Asuka is a village in Japan that dates back to the Kofun period, around 250 to 552 CE. The area is rich in history, and the massive stone structures definitely add to the allure. There are about 20 famous stone monuments here, and to this day, some of them are still super mysterious. No one knows exactly who built them or why. This is definitely the case with Masuda no Anofune, or the rock ship of Masuda. This massive stone structure measures 36 feet long, about 26 feet wide, and is about 16.5 feet tall, weighing around 800 tons. It sits at the top of a hill, and looking at it, it doesn't resemble anything else in the area. A lot of the other monuments look more like Buddhist pieces, but this does not look like your typical Buddhist architecture at all. In fact, I don't really know what style of architecture it resembles. It looks almost alien. At the very least, it looks like something you'd see in a modern art museum. There are some theories about its purpose, but none have been proven. Some think it could have been a ceremonial site, others think it might have had some astronomical significance, which seems to be the go-to explanation when experts just have no idea what the hell something is. It's something to do with the stars. The Longyu Caves are a group of 24 man-made caves in China. The caves were carved out of sandstone, and as for who built them and why, no one knows. They were mentioned in a 17th century poem, but no one really knows exactly when they were created. Some clay pots found in the silt inside the caves have been dated back between 206 BCE and 23 CE though. Another cool thing about these caves is that they were found by accident. In June of 1992, 4 farmers drained some ponds in their village, and there they were. What they thought were just ponds turned turned out to be huge man-made caverns. After doing some digging, they discovered 19 more caverns nearby, too. The caves could be over 2,000 years old, but there are no historical records detailing how or why they were built. But how would they have been constructed, though? Well, with the types of tools available at the time, it would have required around 1,000 skilled workers digging 24 hours a day for many years to complete a project like this. Another odd part, there's no evidence of where all the rubble went. It's estimated that over 1 million cubic meters of stone were removed, but not a single trace of it has ever been found. The walls of Sacsayhuaman. I was saying that, Sacsayhuaman. They're a very impressive feat of ancient engineering found just outside Cusco, Peru, built by the Inca in the 15th century. It's a massive fortress famous for its enormous stone walls made from giant blocks, some weighing up to 200 tons. And aside from how heavy they are, the stones fit together so nicely and tightly that you can't even slide a toothpick between them. Sacsayhuaman indeed. This site would have been used as a fortification and for ceremonial practices. The walls are arranged in a zigzag pattern, which makes the place effective for defense. But how did the Incas manage to transport and shape these massive stones without modern tools? Well, there are theories. They could have used wooden sledges or ramps, but no one really knows for sure. When the Spaniards arrived and took over Cusco, they were so amazed by the walls that they believed only demons could have built such an incredible structure. They even tried to tear down parts of it, but the boulders were just too heavy for them to move. The stone spheres of Costa Rica, also known as the Dique spheres. These perfectly round stone spheres range in size from just a few inches to over 8 feet in diameter, with some weighing as much as 16 tons. They're found mainly in the Dique Delta and the nearby Isla del Cano. Most of these spheres are made of a hard type of granite called granodiorite, and they're believed to have been created by the now extinct Dique culture between 500 CE and 1500 CE. How did they carve such perfectly round, smooth stones? We don't know for sure. Some researchers think they might have used tools made from harder materials or just had techniques that we can't fully understand today. There are also myths and legends that the Dique people had a potion that they used to soften the rocks and sculpt them. All we know for sure is that the precision and craftsmanship here is very impressive. What about what they were used for? The main theory is that they were used to mark the burial sites of important people. There's always the possibility though that they built them just because. I mean, why not? They look nice. Unfortunately, a lot of these spheres have been moved or destroyed over the years. Only about 30 are still in their original locations. The Plain of Jars is one of the most fascinating and mysterious archaeological sites in Laos. The site is full of large stone jars scattered all over the landscape. Some of the jars are massive, weighing up to several tons. Some are much smaller. There are over 2,000 of these jars across the region, with the largest concentration found in a site called Site 1. And you guessed it, no one really knows who made these jars or why they were created. But archaeologists think the jars date back around 500 BCE to 500 CE. The jars were often carved from sandstone or limestone and are mostly cylindrical. Some theories suggest they were used for burial practices, possibly to hold the remains of the dead, but legend has it they were created by giants. In Bada Valley, Indonesia, you'll find some incredible stone monuments. These statues look a bit like the moai from Easter Island. You'd think that with such striking designs, historians would easily know when and why these megaliths were created, but again, no one really knows how old they are or what they were built for. When locals are asked about the purpose of these statues, they often just say, well, they've always been there. Some believe the megaliths are linked to human sacrifice. Others think they were to ward off evil spirits. Some tales even say these stones are criminals turned to stone and that they can move on their own at night. Another cool thing, the megaliths weren't made from stone found in the local area. The Olmec colossal heads. These are some of the most beautiful artifacts from the ancient world and some of the most intriguing. They were crafted by the Olmec civilization, which lived on the Gulf of Mexico between 1200 BCE and 400 BCE. The heads seem to represent important Olmec rulers, given how difficult it would have been to construct them, and the fact that each and every one of them are unique. So far, 17 of these heads have been found, with 10 from San Lorenzo and 4 from La Venta, both major major Olmec sites. Each head is carved from a single basalt boulder, and some of these massive stones were transported over 62 miles to where they stand today. They're actually older than the more famous moai of Rapa Nui. You can tell by looking at them that they're incredibly heavy, 6 tons at the smallest to over 50 tons for the largest, which was never completed. We still don't know exactly how the Olmec moved these gigantic boulders. In fact, we don't really know a whole lot about the Olmecs at all. These heads are some of the few clues we have about their civilization, which mysteriously vanished over 2,000 years ago. The submerged city of Pavlo-Petri, found off the coast of southern Greece, is believed to be over 5,000 years old, making it the oldest known sunken city in the world. Discovered in 1967 by Nicholas Fleming, it's an ancient settlement almost perfectly preserved, with its streets, buildings, and tombs all sitting underwater. Over time, earthquakes and rising sea levels submerged the place around 1000 BCE, and it never resurfaced. The city was a trading hub. There's evidence that it had connections with Crete and other civilizations of the time. Excavations have revealed 15 well-planned buildings and a complex water system. These people were skilled engineers. With high-tech tools like sonar mapping and underwater robots, archaeologists have been able to create a 3D digital map of the city, giving us a closer look at its layout and how it would have functioned. The mystery of crystal pyramids in the Bermuda Triangle has been talked about since the 60s. The first real claim came from a man named Dr. Ray Brown, who, while scuba diving off the coast of the Bahamas, reported coming across this underwater pyramid.
That he came across the most magnificent find of all. In the murkiness, he spotted the tip of a submerged pyramid, barely visible above the ocean floor.
He described it as being made of a crystal-like material, even saying he was able to retrieve a piece of it, but that his camera equipment was destroyed in a storm, thus he was unable to return with actual photographic evidence of the pyramid. Dubious for sure, but since then more stories about underwater pyramids have spread. And then again, the documentary that his story comes from was narrated by Leonard Nimoy, so I can see why people were so intrigued. I mean, it's Mr. Spock. I'd believe it too. Pyramids were found at a depth of 2,000 meters. The report claimed that they were 3 times bigger than the Great Pyramid of Giza. The pyramids were allegedly made of this crystal-like substance. The thing is, Dr. Meir Verlag has never been verified to exist. So, is this an actual find or just another piece of Bermuda Triangle folklore? Off the coast of Malta, a discovery in 1999 started a bit of a debate. They're known as the underwater temples of Gebel Gol Bahar. Hubert Zeitmer, a retired businessman, discovered the ruins. Zeitmer wasn't a scientist, and he was into the whole ancient astronauts conspiracy stuff, so a lot of people dismissed his findings, but that doesn't mean it's not intriguing. There hasn't been an official study into this, but unofficial research has claimed that the ruins could be thousands of years old. Some even think this area was once inhabited and could have been submerged by a massive flood, possibly the same one described in the Bible. Now, of course, mainstream scholars aren't really buying this theory, with some arguing that the rocks and boulders are just the result of illegal dumping. But it's not just the structures themselves that have people talking. There are also cart ruts, grooves in the seabed that stretch into the water, similar to ones found on the island of Malta itself, which means this area might have been on dry land at one point in time. What you're looking at here are the submerged ruins of a long-lost city called Xicheng, aka China's Atlantis. It's pretty spectacular. It sits beneath the waters of Qingdao Lake in the Zhejiang province. The city of Xicheng, or Lion City, was once a bustling metropolis during the Ming and Qing dynasties, but in 1959 it was intentionally flooded to create the Xing'an Dam and its hydroelectric station, which caused nearly 300,000 people to be relocated. The city was forgotten until 2001, when the Chinese government sent an expedition to explore what remained of this lost city. But it wasn't until 2011 that the discovery really took off. The Chinese National Geography published photos and illustrations showing what the city might have looked like before it sank. And what's wild is how well preserved the place is now. There are hundreds of archways with these intricate carvings of lions and dragons and phoenixes. Some inscriptions even date back to 1777. Because the water protects the ruins from weathering, Chichen looks almost as if it were frozen in time, and divers from all over the world come to explore the area. Bimini Road was found off the coast of Bimini Island in the Bahamas in 1968 by Joseph Mason Valentine. The site consists of these large, flat stones arranged in a straight line across the seabed, leading many to believe that it could be the ancient remains of a city. As Valentine explored the area further, he uncovered more outlines of possible ruins around the road. Some were quick to point out that it seemed like evidence of the lost city of Atlantis, arguing that the stones were just clearly too uniform to be some natural formation. Mainstream scientists, though, think that the road is the result of nature, that erosion over a long period of time has just created this illusion of a flat road. Ray Brown, another researcher, claimed to have discovered a sunken pyramid near Berry Island, not far from Bimini. He was on a mission to find sunken galleons when he noticed the quote-unquote pyramid, and as he later reported, his navigation equipment malfunctioned right before the discovery, so maybe there's something to this one. Off the coast of Cuba, there's something pretty wild lying underwater: pyramids. Using sonar, researchers found what looks like the remains of an ancient city, complete with giant stone structures. The find was made in 2001 by a marine engineer named Pauline Zalitsky and her husband, Paul Weinswig, owners of a Canadian company called Advanced Digital Communications. Some of these formations are massive, around 400 meters wide and 40 meters tall, or about 1,312 feet wide and 131 feet tall or so. And they're not natural either, at least they really don't seem to be. The way they're laid out suggests they were designed by humans, so the questions are, how old are they and who built them? Some experts think the city could be 6,000 years old, others believe it could go back as far as 50,000 years. Even more interesting, there are strange symbols and carvings on some of these stones, and they don't match any known languages. But they do kind of look a bit like Aztec or Mayan symbols. Ships have been reporting strange sightings in the Indian Ocean for over a century, and it all starts in 1873. On March 23rd of that year, the crew of the ship Adelheid, crossing the South China Sea, spotted a massive, mile-wide disc floating just beneath the surface, glowing with light. Then in 1879, the HMS Vulture crew reported seeing two giant, quote, Ferris wheels spinning in opposite directions with spokes 25 feet wide and 100 feet apart. Over the years, there have been more and more of these reports. In 1901, the crew of the SS Kilwa in the Persian Gulf saw rays of light coming from an underwater disc-like object. Then in 1943, sailor Matthew Mangle described a huge glowing disc pacing his ship, also in the Persian Gulf. These sightings didn't just happen once or twice, but across multiple decades and locations, each with similar descriptions of these bright, rotating, glowing discs beneath the water. They're all still a mystery to this day, with no clear explanation for what these massive underwater objects could be. At one time, the city of Neapolis was an important Roman city in Tunisia, until it was destroyed by a tsunami in 365. The same disaster hit Alexandria down the coast, but Neapolis was completely wiped out and stayed lost for over 1,700 years. Then in 2017, after 7 years of digging, archaeologists rediscovered it. Even though Neapolis was a Roman city, it sided with Carthage during the Punic Wars, which led the Romans to mostly just ignore this place in their records. But when they started uncovering this city, they found it was much bigger and more developed than they would have expected. One of the coolest finds was over 100 tanks used to make garum, a popular fish sauce in ancient Rome. And it turns out Neapolis might have been one of the top producers of it. In 2007, underwater archaeologist Mark Hawley discovered something incredible in Lake Michigan, a structure that looks a lot like Stonehenge, known as the Michigan Stonehenge. This underwater arrangement of stones sits about 40 feet below the surface and forms this circular pattern. And some of the stones even appear to be lined up in a straight row, which is certainly strange. So what are these stones doing there? Could they be the remnants of an ancient civilization? The way these stones are laid out suggests they were carefully arranged this way, not formed naturally. One of the most curious finds is a rock with what looks like it might have a mastodon carved into it. And to make it even more mind-blowing, these stones are thought to be around 9,000 years old, predating Stonehenge by about 4,000 years. This last one's different from pretty much everything else on this list. It's not an ancient city, but it's creepy all the same. A cemetery of sunken Japanese World War II ships. In 1944, Chuk Lagoon in Micronesia was the site of Operation Hailstone, where US fighter planes bombed Japanese warships, and today this lagoon is home to over 60 shipwrecks, remnants of that brutal battle. It's all just sitting underwater now, corroding ships, tanks, and cars are even scattered across the seabed. As divers swim through the site, they might find barnacle-covered firearm, old gas masks, abandoned medicine bottles, personal items, all just frozen in time. Some of these wrecks even have the bones of soldiers who died in the battle. It's incredibly eerie, no doubt.
In 2017, Antarctica saw a dramatic event when a massive hole, roughly the size of Ireland, appeared in its ice. Known as a polynia, this hole, which stretches across 78,000 square kilometers, is the largest of its kind observed since the 1970s and the first to form in 40 years. Located in the Weddell Sea of the Southern Ocean, this giant opening was created by warmer, saltier water from deeper ocean layers rising up and melting the ice above. As this warm water encounters the colder surface water, it cools and sinks only to be reheated and pushed back to the surface in a continuous cycle. While scientists are still puzzling over the exact reasons behind the formation of these giant holes, some suggest they might be used by marine mammals for breathing. Researchers are actively studying these intriguing holes to better understand their formation and impact on the Antarctic environment. In Antarctica's fossil-rich regions, scientists have uncovered remarkably well-preserved remains of ancient forests that date back around 120 million years. These forests thrived when Antarctica was part of the supercontinent Gondwana, a far cry from the icy desert it is today. Some imaginative theories suggest these fossilized forests might be remnants of an ancient lost civilization. While these ideas definitely capture the imagination, the current scientific consensus is that these fossils are valuable clues about Antarctica's warmer, greener past when it was home to lush vegetation and diverse ecosystems. Beneath the thick ice sheets of Antarctica lies a hidden marvel, the Gamburtsev Mountains. Stretching over 1,200 kilometers and rising up to 3,000 meters, about a third of the height of Mount Everest, these mountains remain largely concealed under a 2,000 to 4,000 kilometer thick ice layer. Discovered in 1958 by Russian scientists who noticed unusual gravity fluctuations while traveling across Antarctica, these mountains are named after Soviet geophysicist Grigory A. Gamburtsev. Despite never having directly observed these mountains, scientists use radar, gravity, and magnetic readings to study them and uncover their secrets. The Gamburtsevs have long puzzled researchers due to their age, estimated at around 1 billion years, as they should have eroded away over such a long period of time. One prevailing theory suggests that a frozen mantle may be shielding these ancient peaks from the relentless forces of erosion, preserving their grandeur beneath the ice. Antarctica is of course known for its harsh and freezing conditions, and because of this, it is home to some remarkable microorganisms, including a unique species of fungi that thrives in this icy environment. Unlike the fungi you might find in warm, forested areas, these Antarctic fungi have adapted to survive the extreme cold by feeding on the old wooden huts left behind by early explorers. Another intriguing type of fungi in in Antarctica has been discovered living off of the petroleum leaks from abandoned fuel containers. This type of fungi is particularly interesting because scientists are exploring its potential for cleaning up larger oil spills around the world. By studying these resilient fungi, researchers hope to harness their capabilities for environmental cleanup and gain insights into how life can adapt to the most extreme conditions on Earth. You might have heard whispers online about mysterious pyramids hidden beneath Antarctica's icy surface. Some theories suggest that these could be ancient structures built by aliens, lost civilizations, or even long-lost explorers. However, before you start picturing an Antarctic version of Egypt's Great Pyramid of Giza, let's set the record straight. There is no evidence supporting the existence of man-made pyramids in Antarctica. What some interpret as pyramids are actually natural mountain formations. In 2016, satellite images highlighted a particularly striking peak in the Ellsworth Mountains, which sparked headlines and speculation, but experts confirm that these so-called pyramids are simply just impressive examples of glacial horns, shaped by natural geological processes over a millennia. While the name pyramid does appear in several official Antarctic mountain names, these are just descriptive of their shapes and not evidence of hidden ancient architecture. In early 2017, a satellite image of Antarctica sparked a flurry of excitement and speculation online when it appeared to show what some claimed was a giant staircase. Posted on a conspiracy theory forum where all the craziest information is, the image led to wild theories suggesting it could be an alien landing site. While some jumped to extraterrestrial conclusions, others proposed more plausible explanations, such as a glitch in the camera or snow formations. Despite the buzz, skeptics pointed out that the image lacked specific coordinates and could be a natural anomaly like snow dunes or ridges. Researchers and experts generally attribute such formations to natural processes rather than mysterious or alien origins, but the image certainly added another intriguing layer to the many conspiracy theories surrounding Antarctica. For this one, instead of just taking a look at this strange structure, we are climbing it. Well, not we, but someone did. In January 2013, a team of climbers and filmmakers, including Leo Holding, Sean Leary, Jason Pickles, Chris Rabone, and Alistair Lee, tackled a new route up the northeast ridge of Ulvitana in Antarctica's Fenrisk-Jeften Range. This 35-pitch route, stretching 1,750 meters, was the fourth ascent of Ulvitana, the highest peak in the range, known for its striking spire-like shape. Arriving on December 22nd, the team set up a festive base camp before spending 10 challenging days scaling the ridge through difficult 5.12 A2 terrain. Despite extreme cold, with temperatures dropping to -35 degrees Celsius and even a severe snowstorm, they reached the summit on January 24th. Although they had initially planned to base jump from the peak, dangerous weather conditions led them to descend via traditional methods. The team's adventure, marked by intense climbing and harsh conditions, was captured in a film and celebrated as a major achievement in Antarctic climbing. The Hollow Earth theory is like something straight out of a sci-fi adventure, suggesting that beneath Antarctica's icy crust lies a gateway to a colossal, hollow world. Imagine a hidden realm, complete with its own advanced civilization, ecosystems, and maybe even mystical creatures, all tucked away in Earth's hollow core. Although this theory captures the imagination and has inspired countless stories in speculative fiction, it doesn't necessarily hold up under scientific scrutiny. Geologists and researchers firmly argue that our planet is solid with a layered structure, not a giant empty sphere. But I've never been, so maybe one day. I don't know. I'm not going to the center of the earth. I'm not Josh Hutcherson. Despite its freezing temperatures, Antarctica is home to several volcanoes, including 4 on Ross Island. While most of these volcanoes are dormant, Mount Erebus stands out as the world's southernmost active volcano and Antarctica's second highest peak, reaching 3,800 meters. Over the past 30 years, Mount Erebus has shown increased volcanic activity, featuring a remarkable landscape of liquid magma and ancient lava lakes that have been boiling for about 1.3 million years. Due to its remote location and harsh weather, access to Mount Erebus is definitely limited, but a team of scientists managed to climb it in 2013. They braved snow, rocks, and glaciers to reach the summit, where they discovered life thriving in the volcano's heat, including microorganisms living in ice caves and soil. These extreme conditions make these organisms some of the most unique and resilient in the entire world. Beneath Antarctica's thick ice sheet lies Lake Vostok, an enormous subglacial lake that remains hidden from view and has intrigued scientists for years. This vast lake, which is roughly the size of Lake Ontario, sits under miles of ice and is home to unique microbial life that thrives in extreme conditions. Because Lake Vostok has been isolated from the rest of the world for millions of years, its environment has led to some fascinating theories. Scientists speculate that the lake could harbor hidden ecosystems or even unknown forms of life adapted to its extreme conditions. The discovery of these extremophiles, microorganisms that survive in such harsh environments, fuels excitement and curiosity, hinting at the possibility of life forms that could exist in other extreme environments, possibly even ones beyond our own planet. Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have the Kailasa Temple in India. This is one of the most jaw-dropping ancient wonders that seems almost impossible when you first hear about it. Carved directly into a massive rock face in the 8th century CE, this temple is part of the Ellora Caves complex, but stands out because it's entirely monolithic. It was crafted from a single piece of stone. What's even more astonishing is the method of its construction. Artisans started at the very top of the rock and excavated downward, a technique that required impeccable planning and precision, since any mistake could ruin the entire structure. The temple is adorned with incredibly intricate carvings depicting deities, mythical creatures, and elaborate scenes that showcase the artistry of the time. Dedicated to Lord Shiva and designed to represent his Himalayan abode, Mount Kailash, the Kailasa Temple, isn't just a feat of engineering, it's a masterpiece that continues to baffle and inspire architects and historians. Can you imagine creating something so magnificent without the aid of modern technology? In our number 9 spot today, we have the Baalbek Trilithon in Lebanon. This is an ancient wonder that leaves even modern engineers scratching their heads. Located within the ruins of the Temple of Jupiter, these enormous stone blocks date back to the Roman Empire and are some of the largest ever used in construction. Each stone weighs around 800 tons. That's the equivalent to stacking about 130 African elephants. The question is, how did people over 2,000 years ago managed to move and precisely place such massive stones without the aid of modern machinery? While we don't have definitive answers yet, theories suggest that they might have used a combination of rollers, sledges, and sheer human effort, possibly involving thousands of workers. The precision and scale not only showcase the incredible engineering skills of the time, but also highlight how much we still have to learn about ancient construction techniques. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Hypogeum of Hal Saflieni in Malta. This is an underground marvel that seems almost too advanced for its time. Dating back to around 4000 BCE, this labyrinthine complex was carved entirely out of limestone using simple tools like antler picks and stones. It spans 3 levels filled with halls, chambers, and winding passages that could easily get you lost. What's truly mind-blowing is the builder's sophisticated understanding understanding of engineering and acoustics. Some rooms are designed to produce unique sound effects. Imagine chanting in a chamber that naturally amplifies your voice in haunting ways. The precise workmanship and planning required for such a feat are astounding, especially considering the limited technology available over 6,000 years ago. The hypogeum not only served as a necropolis, but also stands as a testament to the incredible ingenuity of ancient civilizations. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Banaway Rice Terraces in the Philippines. These are an astounding example of ancient creativity that defies what we might think possible without modern technology. Over 2,000 years ago, the indigenous Ifugao people carved these terraces into the steep mountainsides of Ifugao province, creating a vast network of rice paddies that seem to ascend endlessly into the sky. While these terraces themselves cover a significant area, the entire system of rice terraces in the region extends over 10,000 square kilometers. What's truly mind-blowing is how they achieved this feat with just stone and mud walls, carefully crafted to adapt to the rugged terrain. They engineered an elaborate irrigation system that channels water from the rainforests above, allowing them to cultivate rice sustainably on steep slopes. Even more impressive is that these terraces have been meticulously maintained by countless generations, all without the aid of modern tools. In our number 6 spot today, we have the rock-hewn churches of Lalibela in Ethiopia. These are mind-blowing feats of ancient engineering that seem almost impossible even by today's standards. Carved directly into solid volcanic rock during the 12th and 13th centuries, these 11 monolithic churches weren't built in the traditional sense. They were sculpted from the top down out of a single, massive rock. Each church sits below ground level, nestled within deep trenches, and they're all interconnected by a maze of tunnels and narrow passages. The workers had to plan everything with incredible precision because one mistake would ruin an entire structure. What's even more fascinating is the level of detail inside these churches. Ornate windows, intricate carvings, and perfectly shaped doors, all hewn from the surrounding rock. Commissioned by the king with the aim of creating a New Jerusalem in Ethiopia, these churches stand as a testament to human devotion and sheer determination. The fact that they accomplished this without modern tools or machinery is nothing short of astonishing. It's one of those historical marvels that makes you rethink what ancient civilizations were truly capable of achieving. In our number 5 spot today, we have the Great Zimbabwe Ruins, which of course are in Zimbabwe. These are an astonishing glimpse into a medieval African civilization that flourished between the 11th and 15th centuries. Serving as a royal palace for the Zimbabwean monarch, this ancient city is renowned for its massive stone walls built entirely without mortar, a construction technique that's pretty mind-blowing even by today's standards. The most iconic of these is the Great Enclosure, featuring walls that soar over 11 meters or 36 feet high and stretch approximately 250 meters in length. Crafted from meticulously cut granite blocks that fit together so perfectly, these structures showcase advanced masonry skills that leave historians and architects scratching their heads. How did they achieve such precision without modern tools? The sheer scale and craftsmanship of the Great Zimbabwe Ruins not only highlight the ingenuity of its builders, but also challenge common misconceptions about the technological capabilities of ancient African societies. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Sacsayhuaman Fortress in Peru. This is an ancient wonder that continues to baffle historians. Perched on the outskirts of Cuzco and constructed by the Inca in the 15th century, this colossal citadel showcases some of the most impressive masonry ever achieved. This fortress is built from massive stone blocks, some weighing over 100 tons, and here is the kicker. They're fitted together with such incredible precision that you can't can't even slip a knife blade between them. These precisely cut stones weren't just for aesthetics, their interlocking design was engineered to absorb seismic shocks from earthquakes, reflecting a sophisticated understanding of structural engineering that was way ahead of its time. The methods the Inca used to move and fit these gigantic stones remains a mystery, especially since they didn't have the wheel or iron tools. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Plain of Jars in Laos. This is an ancient mystery. Strewn across the Shangquang Plateau are thousands of enormous stone jars, some standing over 3 meters tall and weighing up to 14 tons. Carved from solid rock using iron tools more than 2,000 years ago, these jars were somehow transported over considerable distances, a feat that seems nearly impossible without modern machinery. What's even more mysterious is their unknown purpose. Were they part of ancient burial practices, storage containers for food or water, or perhaps used in fermentation rituals for rice wine? The lack of historical records leaves us with only theories. The sheer scale and precision involved in creating and placing these massive jars challenge our understanding of what ancient civilizations were really capable of. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Ziggurat of Ur. This is an awe-inspiring relic from the ancient world that defies our expectation of early human achievement. Built around the 21st century BCE by the Sumerians, this massive step pyramid was dedicated to the moon god Nana and stands as one of the earliest examples of monumental architecture. What's truly remarkable is that it was constructed using mud bricks for the core structure and then covered with baked bricks bonded with a natural tar, which was quite an advanced building technique for this time. Thousands of laborers would have been involved in this colossal project, meticulously stacking and aligning each brick to create a structure that could withstand the test of time. This wasn't just a religious center, it was a symbol of technological innovation and societal organization. Considering the limited tools and resources available over 4,000 years ago, the sophistication of this challenges our understanding of ancient capabilities. And finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have the Nabta Playa Stone Circle, which is in Egypt. An ancient marvel that flips the script on what we think nomadic people were capable of thousands of years ago. Dating back to 7000 BCE, this prehistoric site in the Nubian desert is home to one of the world's oldest known astronomical alignments, beating Stonehenge by several millennia. It's astonishing to consider that these early societies had such advanced knowledge of astronomy that they could align stones with celestial events like the summer solstice and the arrival of monsoon rains. The stones were carefully arranged to track the movement of stars and planets, indicating a deep understanding of the cosmos. What's even more incredible is that this was accomplished by nomadic herders, not settled agriculturalists, showcasing their sophisticated observational skills and organizational abilities. The construction involved strategically placing stones in specific patterns, reflecting both astronomical expertise and remarkable planning.